But you don't need to be muted, I don't think, unless there's noise in the background. Certainly for now. But just briefly, if folks could just go around. Wow, we have quite a few people here so far, so I want to keep time in mind. If you could, first of all, if you haven't already, just put in your name what year you're graduating, or if you're an alum. I guess if the year was in the past, we know you were an alum, just so I could see, who's in the room. And if some folks could just either in the chat or feel free to just chime in, just say your name and what your experiences are using Sefaria so far, whether you're like a newbie or you've used it every day. But just I like to hear just kind of where we're at here in terms of backgrounds. So feel free to just popcorn or put it in the chat, whichever is easier for you. We're not going to get to everybody's name for time, but let's get started.
Well, I use Sefaria practically every day. Most of it is for personal studying. I have a chavruta who's in the room, and she and I study quite regularly. I have another study partner, and I just couldn't live without Sefaria anymore.
So you're learning in person, but you also have the Sefaria open while you're studying together. Is that right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Where do the physical books come in?
Or they could be books that that you don't have, or Jamie and I are studying the Book of Jubilees right now, and that's a tricky book. We have learned many different renditions, so we sometimes keep other versions open at the same time. Very cool.
Thank you for sharing, Joel. I see we have some folks who use it a little bit, but haven't been able to take so much, full advantage of it. Teaching resources. Yeah. Lisa, can you share when you're not showing? It's okay. No, it's okay. If you could share, teaching, like, do you teach with it? You create your teaching resources and then teach off of Sefaria? How does that work?
So I often find that if I want to put together a source sheet or a PowerPoint, Sefaria is really good for being able to pull together the sources that I want from multiple places on the site and then move them around and figure out the flow of what I'm teaching. And then to be able to bring in stuff from other sources if I've got like an image or a quote that isn't on the site, but that I feel is really relevant for the teaching.
Great. Good to hear. Yeah. Other folks, how are you using Sefaria? And I ask not to like toot Sefaria's horn, just because we don't know. We don't know all the time. We know who built source sheets, and we can see maybe what text people are learning in general. But part of what we want to do is talk to people, like how we're using it, and then we'll get into like, let's like really get into Sefaria, like how to use it in the best way. But just hearing sort of from the folks who are using it more often, like how are you using it?
I mostly use it to build source sheets. But I really need some help figuring out how to use it as a finding things. I don't find things very well. I already know what they are.
Yeah, great. Thank you. That was Aura. Great. How about questions? Oh yeah, go ahead. Is that Phil?
I use Sefaria for everything from like the very mundane, like to make sure that folks who join our services via Zoom have the Torah reading in front of them. I make a quick source sheet to put up for them. I do it. Every class I teach has, I'd say nearly every class I teach has a Sefaria source sheet that I use the builder for. My own study, frequently, sometimes I forget my book, and my Gemara is right there. And I would say I use the search feature a lot for composing Divrei Torah, things like that, where I have sort of an idea, and I'll search through all sorts of texts and see where I can find that string of words in close proximity, things like that. Yeah, I use it a lot. Wow, saying it out loud really feels like
therapeutic. Great, thank you, Phil. What about questions you have as well? Questions you have, struggles you have using Sefaria? Feel free to put in the chat. That way, also, like I have it like written down so I can send to our team or address here. But welcome you to put in the chat and also share like any questions you have, things you haven't been able to do that you've been trying to do, or issues you've had with Sefaria.
I use Sefaria for my teaching. I use it for making source sheets. I use it for finding things to reference, in particular because I teach at the moment mostly online, but most of my students are around the world. So I have a student in Russia, and a lot of students don't have all the books that you would want. And so I use it because they don't have the books, and also because if I'm teaching students from different backgrounds, if I'm teaching some from Ashkenazi backgrounds and some from Sephardi backgrounds, or some from Reform backgrounds and some from conservative backgrounds or whatever, then not everyone has the same book. So I literally use it so that we can be on the same page. So that's something else. And then in terms of like questioning, I definitely questions and formatting, I'm seeing formatting come up here. I struggle with it, but I think that's just because I don't really understand underlying the how to really use it. I kind of do use it, and I kind of make it work, but I never remember exactly what I've done the last time, and it's a little frustrating process for me. But I still do it because it's like it's an excellent resource when it works.
Right. Yeah, totally. No, this is all very helpful. And like we are constantly trying to make it a better experience for everybody. So this is very helpful. Yeah. Thank you, Bex. And I'm noting folks here about source sheets and formatting and, verses jumping around here and there. See, I know how to add sources and add comments. Source sheet. Great. Yeah. Other questions. Yeah. Searching source sheets. Really interesting. Yeah, other questions, struggles, and hopefully we can address a lot of this. I should say today we're not going to go into like how to make a source sheet. However, we have resources, and I'm going to share them with you that really can sort of take you through step by step for how to do that. And also, like offline, you're welcome to reach out to me. Like I happen to have gone to rabbinical school too. I make source sheets regularly, both for Sefaria and for my other educator work. So I'm happy to share with you, some tips and best practices. As well. And also to kind of give you like a little teaser for next time, I think in 2 weeks, we're going to meet again. We're actually going to think about like, what is it like, sort of thinking more critically about like how we use source sheets and why we use source sheets and what are the sort of the benefits to using source sheets versus like teaching directly from like the library itself, sort of seeing Sefaria not only as like a resource or a place to like put together, source sheets, but also as a teaching tool. For example, you mentioned, I think, was it Bex or was it Aura who mentioned wanting everyone to have the one book in front of them, having the same book in front of them? Was that one of you? Yeah. What does it look like to allow people to choose their own translation, for example? So the ways that we empower our students sometimes by teaching from Sefaria, whereas if we're teaching from maybe some other, whether it's a doc or a piece of paper, sometimes we actually can limit our students in ways that we might, or our congregants. So next time is more about pedagogy. Today, I want us to sort of do like a little tour of Sefaria, and for you to please chime in at any point. If we're going too fast, we have a lot to cover, but I don't want you to feel embarrassed or ashamed. Please just unmute yourself. Sefaria is about democratizing Torah and the conversation. So please, there's no muting here. So please feel free to just, say something out loud in case I missed the chat. Just by way of very brief introduction, my name is Lauren. I also went to rabbinical school, not at Hebrew College, although I have tremendous respect for Hebrew College, and many of my friends have gone to Hebrew College. It's a lovely place. It seems like the learning you're doing is deep and the spirituality is equally deep, and to find both of those in one institution to me seems to be not so common. So yesher koyach to everybody for studying in rabbinical school and for wanting to be a rabbi. I don't know if you call it rabbinical school or smicha or hasmacha. I don't know what the tools are, but I hope rabbinical school is like good enough for our purposes
Lauren,
today.
no, that's not good enough because there's a lot of cantors here too.
And cantorial schools. Yes, that was my second caveat. I did another training with AJR. And we had both as well.
Clergy or rabbis and cantors.
Thank you. Yes. So that is helpful. In fact, I'm going to share with you a Sefaria source sheet in the chat right now. And I'm going to edit it. I'm going to edit it after our meeting today. And I'm going to specifically incorporate language of clergy and cantorial students. Ultimately, this is for both. We call rabbinical school just because that's been our sort of the primary audience we've been working with. But when we've done this with AJR, God willing, with JTS and others as well, we've been sure to incorporate many different folks, including cantorial students and cantors. because in different movements, like they play different roles. And cantors are just as much teachers and scholars as rabbis in many of the communities. They're not just there to sing, and that is the core part, of course, of shul. So I don't want anybody to feel othered. And if you do feel othered, I apologize. If I use the language of rabbinical or cantorial, I'll do my best to speak about clergy. Is that okay? Okay, fantastic. Are we ready to dive in? Okay, so I just shared with you a source sheet. This source sheet basically has everything we're going to cover today. It's sort of like an outline. You can hold on to this. You can save it. I can also modify it in real time because it's a source sheet. But I want you to have this after we're done and I share the recording. Actually, there's going to be the recording will be on this sheet as well at the top. I don't know if you know this, but you can put videos on Sefaria source sheets. You can put audio, and we'll sort of get into some of that. But this is sort of like one sort of showing you like in real time, like what a source sheet kind of looks like or can look like, sort of modeling that. So let's get started. So first of all, the way I like to think about Sefaria is not only, and you can see the sheet, right? Is that right? Just to make sure. Okay. I know it's like what everybody says. So I like to see Sefaria not just as like a source sheet builder. Actually, let me take a step back. Who are we? What are we doing at Sefaria? We're a library, we're a source sheet builder, but I think we're a lot more than that. We're building an extensive library of Jewish texts and the tools to go with it. And through that work, we are, I think, democratizing Torah. We're trying to make as much Torah as accessible to as many people as possible. And we do that by digitizing as many texts as we can from our traditional canon. We acquire and feature works by Torah scholars, past and present. And lately, we've been trying to focus more on diversity. That is part of our plan. We are translating, sometimes original, like we just commissioned an original Esther Rabbah translation, for example. Sometimes we translate text on our own into as many, and we try to feature as many translations as possible into as many languages as possible. And we, of course, try to empower people like you who are clergy, but also your students and your congregants and your constituents to create your own text study materials on Sefaria and to share those with the public. And of course, as you might know from using Sefaria, we also interlink all texts across the generations, across genres, across languages. And the Torah conversation doesn't start and it doesn't end with the published works that we have on Sefaria. The voices of today matter too. Your voices matter. And so we don't only want you to be able to learn and to consume Torah, but to interpret, to create, and to allow others to benefit from your wisdom as well. And we hope that you as rabbinical and cantorial school students and alumni and rabbis and cantors will use Sefaria as a platform to make your voices heard. As far as how to use Sefaria, what can you do with Sefaria? As I said, like we're doing a lot of things here, but the way I like to look at Sefaria is as raw materials. Maybe you learned this one of these texts in your Talmud classes or Midrash, but there's the text about the king or the sovereign and the two servants, and the king gives the servant each of them like wool and flax, and one servant comes back later with the wool and flax, and the other one comes out and made a whole tapestry and made a whole challah bread. And you know, at least honestly, if I gave somebody a gift or something to hold on to and they came back and changed it, I don't know if I'd be so thrilled. But in the eyes of the Midrash here, that's actually the good thing, right? It's Torah is raw materials, and it's the beauty, it's what we can add to it and bring to it. Similarly, that's how I see Sefaria. Sefaria is a platform. And I think the ways that many people use it now is just like the tip of the iceberg. I think we're just in the wool and the flax, but there's really a whole world of tapestries and baked goods that we can make. And so I want to highlight just a few of those just to get our creative minds thinking, because I could say, oh, Sefaria is great, you can do fun stuff on it, but I want to show you like, what does that look like? For example, we actually learned by accident. This was total accident that you can actually live stream a shiur directly to Sefaria source sheet. The way you would do that, for example, is if you have a YouTube live. If you have a YouTube live, then you can put YouTube live link on a sheet, and actually it would actually appear in real time on a sheet. Who knew? So like that's like something like, yeah, we know you can put videos on Sefaria, but like that's just the wool and the flax. You can do a lot more, right? You can actually live stream. So that's really cool. You can make scavenger hunts. You can make bar trivia nights on Sefaria. So Purim's coming up. We have like a Purim scavenger hunt. And the way that works is, if I just show you an example here, right? There's a clue, right? Esther's name means hidden in Hebrew. Hidden behind the name Esther is another name that was given. What is it? Find the verse, right? So you would find the verse that says, Esther's Hadassah. Then you would go and look in the source sheets associated with that verse, and you would find clue number 2. And then clue number 2 might say, whatever. So we know you can make source sheets. That's the wool and the flax. But you can make scavenger hunt by leading from sheet to sheet to sheet to sheet. That's the tapestry. So you can do scavenger hunts. And we have a whole list of holiday scavenger hunts. As you can see here, there's a Hanukkah one, there's a Shavuot one. We have an Afikoman one, of course. And we have the Purim scavenger hunt. Narrative or guided source sheets. Somebody in the chat wrote about like adding comments. That's really important. That you can not, like a lot of people will just put like a sort of a whole smattering of texts, but you can put framing questions, you could put introductions. You can make a source sheet, like if you look at any of Sefaria education source sheets, a lot of our things will have guiding questions. And I say this is important for 2 reasons. One, it means you could teach from this thing directly. Or you could share it with your students or your congregants to learn over directly. But also, when I get to, Louise's source sheet on Sefaria and I just see a bunch of texts, that's great. I might see an interesting text, but I don't know what Louise was thinking. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with all of these texts. I can't read Louise's mind. So it's a way that other people can also benefit from the Torah things that you're creating, because you've sort of hinted at what you're looking to extract, what you want people to extract or to understand from this. So there's sort of 2 benefits to actually creating a guided source sheet.
That would be amazing, because I often go and look at other people's source sheets on subjects that I'm looking for things on, and I see the sources, but I don't see the thread.
Exactly.
I don't see the thinking. Like, why did you choose that source?
So you get it, and that's the point. That's the point exactly, and it starts with us. It starts with us, the educators. And maybe this is more of a meta point. Maybe we'll get to later. A lot of people, a lot of educators, a lot of clergy don't want to put their source sheets publicly on Sefaria, because you can make source sheets on Sefaria, but not publish them. And I have imposter syndrome too every day. There should be a special, division to talk about imposter syndrome. But a lot of people feel like, oh, like I'm a rabbi, I'm a cantor, and these texts are too basic, or did I translate it right? Or like, I'm supposed to be like the expert here. Like, is this source sheet really that good? Do I want people to do that? And other people are like, it's so good and it's my intellectual property and I don't want to share with anybody. So you have 2 poles. In both cases, I would say, we should push ourselves to share more and to recognize that no source sheet is perfect, and that there are actually ways that you will hear from. And I hear from people all the time messaging me on Sefaria, hey, I saw that source sheet you made. And I used it at my, Hillel class, or, in my chaplaincy today or something. And it's just like, I don't have congregants, but if I did, they're not going to tell me that, like you can actually get hakarat hatov and gratitude by making sheets accessible to more people, which is nice. Other things you can do, you can make mixed media galleries, visual art. So, if you're a photographer, an artist, or you're part of a community that values that, you can make source sheets. For example, this one here is from a photographer named Sion Ozeri. And so this is a Pirkei Avot series where, there's a picture of this is probably like to acquire a friend, right? And then it, asks you to interpret this, right? There's a whole, and here are those guiding questions again, right? Understanding, reflecting, right? So you can do that. And you could also just take pictures that are available in the comments from the web and put it there on Sefaria source sheets. Like you could either just sort of put pictures throughout your source sheets, or you could even just make a whole art gallery, like maybe there's a certain midrash, and you have your students, your constituents, like draw out what that looks like to them. And then you feature it on a source sheet. And then maybe you share it with like the synagogue bulletin, like here are the things that we've been doing. So you can actually do a lot of things with mixed media. A few other ideas, and then we'll go into the weeds a little bit. Crowdsourcing source sheets. It's like the crowd sorts, whether with your own rabbinic colleagues or cantorial colleagues or others. There are ways there, like you can set your source sheet setting so that multiple people can add to it. So for example, here, I was part of a learning group and we all just added texts that we liked related to Tu B'Shvat. So you can see here, added by Zoe Jick, right? Added by Jeremy Borovitz, added by Michael Lapidus, added by, Anna Bonheim, right? So this is one source sheet, but it was a collaborative source sheet. Similarly, there's a sort of a famous internet rabbi. He's a real rabbi. He's also like a friend of mine virtually because I've never met him, Akiva Weisinger. And he made a thing. Why are we celebrating Hanukkah? He put it on the internet, and then you just have like dozens of people, as you can see, right, again, added by Isabel Bard, putting these texts that this is what we're celebrating on Hanukkah. So you could do this with your community. For example, maybe there's a topic, maybe there's a theme of your synagogue or your classroom, and maybe you'll have the different members contribute their favorite texts, on that thing. So you could do collaborative source sheets, and you can put your sermons on. You can put your sermons. You can write essays. There's so much you can do on Sefaria, making Haggadot, and then of course having a rabbinic or cantorial presence on Sefaria is really valuable. Everyone can have, if you sign up, if you register, you can have a profile. I can just show you my own personal one, right? So if you type in my name, it'll come here. It'll show you the places that I've studied. It'll tell you, a little bio about me, right? All the different sheets that I've made on Sefaria, the collections of sheets that I'm a part of, right? And so I can actually message, I can, hi, Lauren, okay, message sent. So this is a way I think that, when we're trying to get our Torah out there, one way to do that is by putting it on Sefaria, by actually building our profile in a way that people will find us and that we can find other people and interact. So that was sort of a long introduction to sort of show how Sefaria really is, I think, raw materials. There's the wheat and the flax, but with a little creativity, you can really build a lot more. But also, just learning on Sefaria, searching for things, creating source sheets, that's 99% of the battle. And it's a very beautiful battle. Milchamta shel Torah, right? The battle for Torah. So that's what I wanted to show you just by way of these examples. Let me just pause and see if you had any initial questions or thoughts, reflections, or feel free to put it in the chat if you don't want to do it orally. And then from there, we'll go into the more of the mechanics of Sefaria. So let me just pause there.
I'm amazed about how many things you could do. I never had any idea that you could do all those things. So I'm excited.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Other thoughts, reflections, reaction? Okay, or I think you're trying to talk. Yeah.
I wonder if there's a way that you can put copyrighted material up and have it still, if you copyright it on the Sefaria thing, if you put a copyright sign.
Yeah, so we definitely need to be very careful when we put copyrighted material on Sefaria. It's all in our in our user our policies. But you're able, if you own the copyright, you're able to put on Sefaria and still maintain the copyright. But there's something called fair use. When it comes to putting texts, for example, if you take a text from Tolushkin or something and put on Sefaria, how much can you cite or whatever. Usually with educational texts, there are fewer issues. With images and art, there can be major issues actually. But that's something to think about whenever you are putting media, is to make sure that the rights are publicly available. It's that they're in the commons. Off camera, please show resources for cranjacking. Oh, interesting. Yeah. Are there shortcuts for finding underrepresented sources? My short answer is not yet. But that's a good, that first of all, it's a very interesting bot. For those who aren't familiar with cranjacking, I think it's cranjack. I think there's a typo there. It's to make sure that you are, representing women, for example, I believe in your source sheets and in your teaching in general. Abigail Halpern, who's a student at Hadar Institute, I know she's putting together a Dvar Torah series on Substack, which is very, very makpid, very strict about making sure that the cranjack test is being passed. And so I recommend checking out some of her Torah as well if you're ever looking for that. Okay, let's dive in. And again, I want to remind you, please feel free to interrupt me at any time, really. Okay, so let me move my Zoom there and find you here. All right, so some of this might be review, some of it will not be review. If you've ever read the introduction to Mesilat Yesharim, he says, the Ramchal says at the very beginning that much of what I'm going to tell you, you're going to know already. It's going to seem so obvious to you. And yet the things that are most obvious sometimes that are right in front of our faces, we forget. if anyone's been in a relationship, sometimes that's true. So some of what I'm going to share is might be review, but I hope that we'll go deeper into those things, and also that it might be like, oh wow, like it's been in front of my eyes the whole time and I did not even know. So we get to Sefaria. Like, what are the different like ways in? How do we get into Sefaria? So there are really 3 different ways to access Sefaria. Once you're on Sefaria, you have you have this banner here, right? You have texts, which are like the stacks, like the library stacks. If you were to walk into a library, for example, we don't like to see ourselves as a library, but let's just go with it. Then you have topics. And this is particularly helpful for clergy and for teachers, where they're basically a whole list of topics that you can go in just topic by topic, and you'll find sources or sheets associated with them. There's another way to get to the topics, which we'll go to in a little bit. And then there's the community page. The community page is part curated and part automatic. So you'll always see something related to the Parsha, something related to Talmud, and something related to the calendar at most times. And these are things that the learning team, the learning department, which I sit on, that we curate, that we put together. So we've chosen, for example, these, and we do try to make sure that that it is represented, that there are multiple voices. And then you have recently published. It's sort of like a news feed where you can see, if you know Aryeh Cohen, Professor Rabbi Aryeh Cohen, Dr. Aryeh Cohen, right? And you can see these are things that are made 4 hours ago, source sheets that have that are sort of made in real time. 45 minutes ago, this sheet was made. 1 hour ago, this sheet was made. So if ever you're like looking just to see like what are people talking about right now, a lot of times you can just go here and see that. So again, there are 3 different ways in, and then we're going to go in. You have the text tab, which takes you in the stacks. In addition to the stacks, you have like the calendar learning, like learning schedules related to Daf Yomi, Mishnah Yomi, Halacha Yomi, the Parsha, Haftorah, etc. That's right here in the stacks on text. You have topics and you have community. So let's say you know what text you're looking for, and you know the topic or the theme that you're looking to explore. My question, and please just unmute yourself, is how do you typically find the source or topic you're looking for? You know exactly what you're looking for, whether it's a pasuk, whether it's a Gemara, whether it is a topic. How do you typically find it? So open. What do you typically do? What's step number 1 for you?
I click on text.
Okay, so you'll click here. So all right.
Yeah. And then I'll click on one of those.
Well, what are we trying to look for? Let's give us an example.
Okay, so I want to find, I know that I'm looking for something from this week's Parsha.
Okay, so what are you going to do?
I click on Tanakh.
Okay.
And then I click on Exodus.
Okay.
And then I go down and I find the Parsha, which is Kitisa.
Great. And then you're Kisisa.
And there
Great.
I am.
Amazing. Okay.
Then,
fantastic. Yeah. Let's go back. And
then I get confusey.
Okay.
Because then I want to make my source sheet and I can't find me and I can't find where to make the source sheet and so on. That's the bit where I get like, I kind of try to sort of work it out and eventually it gets there, but it's not very streamlined.
Okay. So time permitting at the end, we'll see if we can get there. Okay. But just very briefly, if you're trying to do a source sheet, then, you would click on it, right? Let's say you already have a source sheet created and you want to just add it, right? You would go down here, you would click the verse that you want, or you would highlight the verses that you want. And then you would go to add sheet, and then you would select the one that you're looking for, right? And this also assumes you're logged in. You have to be logged in, first of all. So that's important to know. You have to be logged in. But okay, we're not going to go too far into source sheets, but it's okay to be confusing. And I want to show you two other ways you could have done that. Okay, so 2 other ways you could have done that. One is right here, the learning schedules, Parashat Ki Tisa. So let's say we are this week, right? If it was last week, we'd have a different story because it would say Tetzaveh, right? So instead, you could just go to text and then click this weekly Torah portion. And now I'm in Ki Tisa. So that's like a sort of simpler way to do it.
I've never done that. That's so cool.
Now it's a first, right? You could also type in here, Ki Tisa, right? You'll see this pound sign, and we'll get to what that means. Click Ki Tisa, and then it'll take me to here. It's like a little, sort of like a very brief summary. It gives me the verses, the Haftorah, related themes, maybe this even tells me like what's might be in it, Teshuvah, Teshuvah's in the Torah? Where's that? So maybe I might be interested in like, what's the connection, right? I can see sources that are related to Kitisa, right? Or like some of the more commonly cited ones, right? I can see sheets related to Kitisa. So that's like, let's say I'm just, this is how I want to do a little research first. And then I want to go into the text. I could either click here or I could click read the portion. And I can do that for any parsha. Teruma. Well, let's do Tetzaveh. Tetzaveh. Same thing. Get the same thing. It tells me we're related, the text, etc. Read the portion. So that's one way. And I hope this just made your life a little bit easier to access the parsha. Those are 2 or 3 different ways, right? You could either go manually through Tanakh, Exodus, etc., and then go down here, or you could type it in, just the parsha, or you could, if it's that week's parsha, you could just click here on the learning schedules. Okay. What else might we be looking for? Depends what I'd be looking for. Great. Yeah, what else? Anything else we might be looking for? Let's say like a theme. Let's go with a theme. Let's say life. Okay. So let's just say I want to type in life. So I want to notice a few things that are going to happen here. First of all, you'll notice a few different icons. One is the pound sign. One is this, the 4 squares. And one is this little silhouette. Sometimes it'll be a picture of somebody. So this one you might intuit is this will take me to Liel Madar's profile, right? So I could see who is Liel, what sources does she, what source sheets has she made, et cetera. Like the same way that we went to mine earlier. You can also, under the pound sign, that'll take you to a topics page. If you remember, we had the topics page and you could just manually go in and click topics, say, I'm not sure, maybe life cycle, right? I'm not sure where life would be here, but, maybe we'll go to, birth. And then I have the birth, then I'm under the birth, what do you call it? Topics page. Or I could just type in birth. And then all of these are all different topics that come up. I could click birth and it'll take me here. Another thing I could do, for example, if I just want to show you is, I type in Chaim. I type in Chaim and a few different things are going to come up. One is, and I want you just to look at the icons. The icons will make your life very easy. And I want to also suggest that when you're searching for something, you wait for it to auto-populate and see what it suggests. So here, whenever there's like an open book here, that'll take me to that particular book, Chaim V'Chesed, that particular book. Here, it's going to take me to the topics page for Chaim. If I click it, there we go, life. And then there's like sources associated with it, sheets that are associated with life, etc. Right? I see a quill. The quill will take me to an author page. So then I can learn all about Chaim Mordechai Margalio. I click it, and it'll tell me a little bit about the author and what works we have of his on Sefaria. Let's go back to Chaim. And then there's Chaim Goldberg. Chaim Goldberg. We all know Chaim Goldberg, right? So then I know that that's a person because it has the little image there. So all of these are very helpful, I think, to know about and to keep in mind when you're searching for something. Because sometimes
what were the 4 squares that you showed us before?
Great, thank you. The 4 squares take me to a genre. So let me type. If I type in Tanakh, a few things come up, right? Hadran for Tanakh, which is a book, right? The Tanakh topics page, right? In which case it'll take me to the topic Tanakh. But if I want to go to Tanakh itself, I could just also click here. And it'll take me to the genre, to like the sort of, it'll take me to the library, but it'll be a bit more specific. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Other thing I want you to notice is this here. I don't know if people use it often, but this will, because right now, if I just type in life, what's going to happen? Let's see what happens if I type in life. Okay, let's try Tanakh. I type in Tanakh, it'll take me to Tanakh, right? It automatically assumes that's where I want to go. But let's say I want to know where does this word Tanakh appear? And granted, it's an English word, transliterated, so it's not going to be a ton of results, but I just want to search for that word Tanakh, right? I could click here and any search will have it, search for Tanakh. And then it'll take me just straight here. And then it will give me, in a search, it'll give me the number of sources, the number of sheets that have that word Tanakh in it. And I don't know if you all use this often. Let me just, let's think of a different thing here. Let's just do life. Why not? So if I go to life, right, I'm searching for the word life. but I want to narrow down my search because I'm not going to go through 18,000 sources. I mean, I love Torah as much as than a person next to me, but that's a lot of time. You can narrow it down. I don't know if you've seen this before, but maybe you're interested in like, where does life appear in the Talmud? So it's still a lot, right? 1,400, times. Okay, but I can narrow it down by Masechet, right? If I want to see in Mishnah, where does it appear? Same thing. I can narrow it down by Masechet. It's a little easier to go through like Brachot, for example. It's just 11, right? So something that was cool I found, I typed in Tziva, right? Because you can search in Hebrew, you can search in English. And I looked here and I said, wow, look, it appears it has 612 answers or sources. Now, that doesn't mean it appears 612 times. It means we have 612 distinct verses that mention, that have that root. But I was like, wow, 612, I can make a whole drasha off this, Why not 613? So you can search in English, you can search in Hebrew. You can sometimes even abbreviate if you're studying like Orach Chaim Halacha. You could do OC, for example, OC 119, and then it'll take me to Orach Chaim 119, or Gen Z 1, 2, right? Gen 1, 2, Genesis, it'll take me Bereshit 1, 2. So you can abbreviate sometimes. And if you don't have Hebrew on your keyboard or it's too hard, you could just click the keyboard here and then manually type it in, Ma'im. And then we could do it like that. Does Safari have source translation for language other than we do? You can make source sheets in other languages, but we don't have we don't have them that we host. But we do have like a lot of different translations. So I'll show you. If you go to Tanakh, if we just go to the Parsha, I can show you here on the sidebar. It's actually where I wanted to go next. Let me make sure this is where I want to go next. I showed you the icons. Great. I showed you narrowing down. I showed you filtering. Oh, sorry. One other thing I want to show you, and then I'll get to translations, is if we just go, back here, then I can sort it, right? So right now it goes Genesis, Deuteronomy, Genesis, Mishnah Sanhedrin, Genesis, Deuteronomy, right? Kind of all over the place a little bit, Psalms. But let's say I want to maybe trace a certain word. Let's say the word life through Tanakh. I could sort it by chronology, and now everything will be Genesis, and then it'll go to the next, and the next, and the next, all the way through Jewish history until today. So you can use the sort function. And then you have sheets, right? So this is whenever you have a search result, right? I typed in life. I went to the search for that word life. Under sheets, right? There's still a lot, right? I could narrow it down based on topic here. Maybe I want to know about life and teshuvah. So I'll just do that. And then it will only give me sheets that are associated with teshuvah. That's just an example. So you can always search for something and then narrow it down by genre, by chronology, you could even do views. I want to know what's most popular. All right, I click life, and just so happens this one is the most popular source sheet on Sefaria. It doesn't tell me how many views it has right here, but there you go. So you can narrow it down by topic, by chronology, or by book. So there's a lot you can do there. Someone had asked about translations. That's where I want to go next. So what I'm about to show you, you can do for any text, right? So I'm in the Parsha right now. Now, on any text, you'll have a choice here. When you open up the resource panel, we call it, it's like a sidebar, the resource panel. You have a few different options here. You have about this text. You have table of contents and translation. So about this text, I highly recommend you use this as often as you can or need. Because oftentimes on Safari, you might end up in it, and this happens to me all the time. I end up in a text that I never heard this before. What is the Chaim? What is it? Let's go to that Chaim. Let's just go Chaim v'Chesed. I don't know that text. Okay, maybe other people do here. I see it's here Chassidut, but let's say I didn't know. All right, you probably know this because you learn with our green. So let's just say I'm in this text and I have no idea. I don't know. First of all, I don't know how I got here, but I don't know what I'm looking at. So I can go to about this text, and it will tell me who it's by, a little bit about it, right? And I can do this for any text, right? I could be in the Gemara in Shabbat. Right, I could be in Gemara Shabbat, and I don't know what is Shabbat 3a. What is this code language? I know you know, but let's say I don't know, or I'm a student, or a congregant. Telling your congregants by that whenever they have questions, they could ask, and they could also look on about this text. It'll tell me Shabbat belongs to the second order festivals and discusses the 39 prohibitions of work. It has 24 chapters, right? Composed in Talmudic Babylon, right? So you can do this for any text. There's about this text. You can go to about this text for anything. There's also table of contents. And I think this is a really cool function that we have, that you can jump around from chapter to chapter this way, right? So I don't have to keep going, Genesis 3, Genesis 4, or go back and forth or scroll up and down. I could just go, click on any verse, go to table of contents, and then it'll take me, I can go to any chapter in Genesis on the spot like that. So I think that's a cool thing that one can do. Can save a lot of time. And then another sort of kicker is the parsha. So there are two functions here. One is it tells me the verse that I'm in, it tells me what parsha I'm in because it's in bold. So that's kind of neat. I just know what parsha it's in, but I can also jump around to different parshas, right, this way. Just like we saw earlier, how you could go from the topics page into the different parshas, you could do this. But I think what is pretty cool about this is like I could be in any verse of the Torah, and on the spot, it will tell me what parsha I happen to be in. So that's a way to jump around from parsha to parsha. It's a way to identify what parsha that text is in, and it's a way to jump around from chapter to chapter within a book. And you can do that. You can do that for halacha too.
How do you know? Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, please, no, please.
How did you? So can you just go back to the thing where you're jumping around?
Yeah.
Parashiot. So you went and you clicked down on the Torah portion, right? And you said, okay, I know that this is in Vayera, although it seems like we're in Lech Lecha, but okay, I guess we're at the end.
Here, because I wasn't there. Yeah, because I hadn't clicked on a verse. Yeah.
Okay. Then you said I can just go to some other parsha. So you clicked on some other parsha. How did it choose where to click you to? And I think the answer is because you were on chapter 18. Is that right? I mean, you were on 18 up there. How did it know where to go to in the parsha?
Oh, it didn't know where to. When I click, you mean when I click parsha, the different parsha?
Yeah. How does it? What choice did it make about where it went to in Toldot? If you click on Toldot,
it'll take me to the beginning. It takes me to the beginning.
Nope.
Okay, so that's interesting. What just happened there? This is great. So in this case, so yeah, now it does. So it was a little bug. Bugs happen.
I think actually, if you scroll up,
yeah.
No, in the resources area, you had clicked on 18 before. Okay. So maybe it tries to find chapter 18 of whatever parsha. Is that maybe what it did?
No, this would be 18 of that particular book. So Genesis 18.
Okay, so when you go down and choose a parsha, it doesn't know where it's going?
Well, it knows it's going to that particular part, to the beginning of that parsha. In this case, it's Genesis 23.
Okay, so if you click on Vayeshev, it's going to go to the beginning of Vayeshev?
Exactly, yeah, precisely. Yeah, okay. Great. I hope that's helpful. So that's about this text. That's table of contents. Translations. As you can see here, we have 21 translations of this one verse. Not all of them in English, a lot of them in English. So you can always choose when you're teaching from Sefaria or when you're creating a source sheet, you can choose what translation you're going to use. Right now, the default on mine is this contemporary JPS, which is more gender sensitive. If I wanted to use Everett Fox's, I could do that too. I want to warn you, and somebody mentioned this, is that we do have a little bug where sometimes it jumps around when I choose a different translation. So I just want to just kind of say that. But I can click here. In this case, it didn't jump around. Right now I have a different translation. And sometimes it actually makes a difference. As you know, translation is interpretation. So you can always choose which translation works best for you. Or if you're creating a source sheet, you could even modify the translation yourself. But we have English, we have, if I just keep scrolling down here, we have German, we have Farsi, we have Esperanto, Spanish, Persian, I would call it Farsi, French, Italian, Ladino, Polish, Yiddish. There's a lot here. So if you want to practice your Yiddish here, right? Und das Leben von Saren is, okay, there you go. So yes, there are many translations on Sefaria. You can take your pick. Let's say you are looking at a certain translation, right? By going to about this text, you can see which translation you're actually looking at. It tells me I'm looking at the core in the English and this, Yehoyash's Yiddish translation here. So that's if ever you're all like, what is this translation all about? Or like that translation is wrong, right? You can look and see what's the source. Okay, so that's a little bit about the first three of the sidebar, which I think already can really add a lot to your experience. A few other things to notice before we go into the rest of the sidebar. One is this little bookmark here. For all text, you can save it. You don't need to create a source sheet, right? Write it down. You can always just bookmark a text, right? So if I click here, bookmark, the save, Genesis, we're in 3:1. I could go here to the bookmark. I click it, and Genesis 3:1 will be here, right? So I saved it for later, basically, right? Also, I can take notes on a certain text. Let's see if I can find it anywhere here. Oh, you can also do it with certain source sheets. I like the social distancing in the Talmud source sheet, right? Here it was. And then there was the bookmark, right? I clicked it. So you can always save a text, and you can save text, you could save source sheets for later. Then there's the A Aleph button. This is a great teaching tool, which we'll get to another time. But A Aleph, you could make it all in English, depending on your audience, right? Or if you're trying to work on your Hebrew only, click the Hebrew button, and now it's just in Hebrew, right? If I want bilingual, I can also like their aesthetics, right? Maybe I like the stacked version. I like the top, bottom, bottom, top version. Maybe I like the, see here, if I like the sort of innie outie going that way, or I like this way, the outie innie that way. So you can choose like what aesthetically works for you. And like also if you want the text to be a little bit bigger, let me just close this for a sec. If you want the text to be a little bit bigger, I just click that, the font size, right? And this can be helpful if you're teaching on Zoom, for example, or you're right, somebody can't see it. And everybody can do this on their own screen as well. And it doesn't like, so just because, so that's something to know. Like if you give a link to something to somebody, you might want to tell them that they can do this. And that hopefully will help them. And you can make it smaller. You could turn the back, you can turn on trup. If you're either laning or practicing laning or teaching bar bat mitzvah, you could do the turn on trope, turn it off, just vowels, or no vowels at all. The most scariest of all. So those are a few different ways to look at the texts and even to teach the text and even to study the texts. And that's the A Aleph button. And we did the bookmark. So you know that you can bookmark things. A few other things to know on the related text side here. You have commentary. So for the season Sefaria, you might know this, right? For all texts, you can find for any time there's a commentary here, it means we have commentaries on this particular text, right? In this case, we have 37 comments on this particular verse. The fact that there's an EN here tells me that we have at least one commentary in here that's in English. So in this case, with halacha, there's no EN, which means if Hebrew is not my forte or I just don't have time, then this might not be super helpful for me, right? It's going to be all in Hebrew. However, if there's an EN button there, it means for me, if I'm an English speaker only or I prefer English, it'll be there. So I can click I can click here. And there we go again, right? Here's the Rashi, Ibn Ezra, Sforno, the ENs are all there. But if you get further down, right, the Bechor Shor, no EN. So there's no English option here. It's Kuni EN, right? So that's something that keep in mind. Hopefully it saves you some time if you're looking for particularly English sources. Other things to note, I would say, so again, you might know this, but you have sheets, right? And this will take you to all sheets that cite this particular text. You could even see who wrote it, you know, how many views are there, what are the different themes that it might cover. And a couple of things that you might not have noticed. I don't know if folks have seen this web pages feature. I worked for a long time on this particular feature myself. Hebrew College is on here, by the way. We know that you can find source sheets that people have made, but we also link to other websites, to other articles on websites that cite this particular verse as well. So maybe you want to read somebody's Devar Torah that's not on Sefaria, right? Or an essay or something. If I click web pages, I'm going to help you be less overwhelmed if you're overwhelmed in 2 seconds, because there are 746 links, which is a lot. I'm going to click web pages. And if Hebrew College is like, you know, one, you know, I do identify as like a pluralistic rabbinical school, right? This is going to be like that times a million. So I'm going to click web pages, and you're going to see here, you have Virtual Beit Midrash, Aish, My Jewish Learning, JTS, AJU, OU, you know, Trua, Rabbi Sachs. Who knew all these people wanted to be learning Torah together, right? The most beautiful thing is that all of these texts, all of these different, you know, individuals, right, or organizations, the one that connects them all is this one particular verse. Torah connects everybody, it connects everything. So Hebrew College is right here, right? If I click it, it means there are 7 articles that I'm going to find. So I click Hebrew College, and already I know this is not going to be helpful for me. I'll tell you why. It says here, citing Exodus 27:20 to 30:10. What that probably means is this page has like Parsha, whatever Parsha we're in, Actually, what parsha are we in? Let's check it out. Let's go to about this text, or let's go to table of contents. We are in parsha. My screen's Tetzaveh. Oh, okay, we're in Tetzaveh. So I know that probably it's just going to say Tetzaveh on Hebrew College's page. Where is it? Let's find it. Here we go. So that's not going to be helpful for me. If I go to some of the other ones, let's just go to My Jewish Learning. Here, similar situation, not helpful. Let's go to JTS. Also not helpful. Let's go to OU. Everyone just wants to cite the parsha. Okay, here. This says citing Exodus 31 through 10. That could be helpful. I want to find one where they just cite our verse, though. I don't know. Here we go. This is better. 34 through 6, right? So this one, in terms of finding what's relevant for me, you can do that based on, and that's always going to, the most relevant ones are going to appear at the top. Is there a particular way to save one's thoughts on a particular? Yes, there is. Amazing. Okay, I want to show you. The question was, how can I save my thoughts? I came across this amazing text. What do I do with it? My favorite text in the world. Okay, so what I can do is the following. I click the verse or any text, plus any text. So we saw web pages, we saw sheets, right? If you're interested in manuscripts or the Torah reading, I don't know if you know this, but you can click here and you can hear the Torah reading. I don't know if you heard that, but you can hear the laning as well. Lisa's, okay,
Actually,
here we go.
Lauren,
Yes.
I noticed that was incorrect because the verses that were cited were the ones in the end of Tetzaveh, and it said it was in Ki Tisa.
It said it was in Tetzaveh. Over here?
Oh, I thought it said Ki Tisa. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
no. If I said Ki Tisa, maybe I misspoke. But thank you for pointing that out, because if it didn't, then that would be
the last one that you showed, because it said chapter 30, verses 4 through 6, I think, but Ki Tisa doesn't start till verse 11, if I'm correct.
Oh, interesting.
So just curious about that.
Oh, yeah. So I think it's a Tetzaveh, but I'm gonna after our meeting, I want to check that out.
Yeah, just check it out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To answer whose question was it? Jamie. So here, notes. I could say, great material for, controversial topic here, right? Add note. And now, whenever I get to this first, so two things. First of all, whenever I get to this verse, right, just like it has like this, like 18, 746, it'll tell me notes. Oh, I have a note on here. Maybe I even forgot, right? When I just happen to be studying. I can go here and I can see the note and I can also edit it. But also, if I go to my profile, I go to notes. And then it has all my notes here. So there's that text, great material for controversial topic here, right? This one, here, like I came across this Esther Rabbah text. I liked it. So I put distributed booty rather than hoard for selves, like Haman and family. So these are just like notes. Oh my God, I really like this text. It made me think of zebras. Right. So you could take notes on text themselves and you can find them in your profile under notes or when you're actually studying that text itself.
Excuse me, could I just ask, did the original text that you're commenting on appear because you attached it, or did you copy it and paste it into your note?
I just typed it in. I want to make sure I understand you. So I just clicked. If on any text, if I just type it in, Joel's question, I click add note, and that's it. That's all you have to do.
No, but when you showed us your notes.
Oh, the other notes, yeah. It automatically gets moved there.
No, here's my question. Back up. Okay, see how you've got all that text there from Exodus 30:12?
Yeah.
Did you put that in there, or does that just appear there because it's what you're making a note about?
Exactly. Yeah. The latter. The latter. It's not just like it's not a general notepad, you could say. It actually it has the reference that it's connected to a particular text.
Okay, great. So it shows the text.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Can I just quickly ask also, but when you go back to the main body of the text, there's no place in, I don't know, whatever you commented on, Genesis 32:4, whatever, that know that you see, I guess you have to look down and you see here
Correct.
at the bottom that you have a note, but there's nothing, no marker, no red dot that says you have a note here or.
That's a great point. I'm going to take note of that and even say, maybe that's something that we shouldn't, maybe that's something that we might want to add. Yeah. I don't know. Do you agree? Would that be helpful? Okay. Yeah.
For me, it would be useful.
Yeah.
I think it'd be great because like
I
my
agree.
eye responds to color a lot. So like, there's a lot of black and white on this page.
Yes.
So that's why actually I have to tell you, I've never seen all the things you're showing me, which is, it's great that now I see them. But like if I had a red dot next to Vayishlach Yaakov, then I'd be like, oh yes, red dot.
Yes.
Right? Like red.
So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to feedback. I'm just going to feedback. Say have some feedback. Let's say report issue, report a bug, get help, request a feature. Let's see. How's that? Is that right?
Ah,
Yeah. Okay. Submit. And now then the team will get notified. You can do that, by the way. You can always add feedback. You could, request translation. That's like less likely to happen immediately, but it's worth. We do actually consider these, especially if it's like translate this whole book, and we might want to add it to our list of things to acquire or to translate. Right? If you find a bug, right, issues with text, right, the translation looks off or something like that, or there's a typo, you can always do feedback, and we check it every day, more often. I also want to say, I don't know if you've ever seen the Chavruta function, but you can click Chavruta and then send this link that you see here to somebody else. And if they have a Sefaria account and they're logged in, once they click it and you click start call, you'll be together studying the text on Sefaria with the video chat and everything. No need for Zoom or Skype or anything like or Google Meet or whatever it is. So you can actually learn together. You could chat. There is a feature we have called Beit Midrash where you can have multiple people all together. Where you're only one-on-one you're only studying one-on-one, but you have a whole list of people. You can see who's in the room, what they're learning. You can click into their books, almost like, hey, what are you learning? Like, oh, I'm going to learn with you, or just sort of learn that text, whatever you're studying. So there are ways to learn together on Sefaria too. It's not a solo endeavor. Thank you, Louise. Thank you, Jamie. I know we have a few minutes left. Let me pause there for questions, thoughts, and also for those who haven't left yet but are about to leave. We're going to meet again in 2 weeks, and that'll be more about pedagogy. And sort of using Sefaria as a teaching tool to empower our students, not only something that we as teachers or as educators, clergy, cantors, rabbis can use. Please feel free to ask any questions, and I can stay a few minutes over if you have time to. Welcome you to put in the chat or to voice your voice. Any questions, requests? I know we didn't get to the sheet creation, but hopefully there will be a time for that. We'll have to find some time. Yes, Moshe, to answer your question, on the sheet that I sent in the very beginning, I'm going to resend it. Let's find it. On that sheet, let's see. Wait, did I not send it? I thought I did. On that sheet, you can find, let's see here we go. You can find at the bottom our help center, right? And I'm going to share the help center link right here anyways. In the help center, you can find, hey, why didn't it show up there? I'm going to send the link directly to the help center. If you go to search, type in help center, you'll get to our help center, and that has like our FAQs. It'll have, for example, let's just look here, sheets. Let's see, source sheets. Let's see, making a source sheet right here. Right, and this will tell me the ins and outs, a little bit of making a source sheet, sort of in least in that for a beginner, right? And I'll give you some GIFs, some images for how to do that. So that's, I hope that's helpful for you. Can we hear a bit about the Beit Midrash? Yeah. So it's both and. So we ran it as a beta test for like the whole world or whoever wanted to join. and it went really well. So there is a world where it's going to be like, just like, hey, just pop on in, just see who else is learning while, on Sefaria, how many other thousands of people are learning? What are they studying? But yeah, there is a way, I think right now, actually, with the current Beit Midrash feature, well, the current Chavruta feature, I think if you were to send, sort of like secret, but if you were to send this link here, let's just try this actually. I don't know, I'm just going to Joshua. Why not? If you send this link to somebody, I think multiple people can log in at the same time. But it's only for people who have that link. So when I click this, like, it's a unique link. It's not like if you were to click Chavruta, it wouldn't be like the same link. It would be different. Yeah, so maybe we won't test it now, but you could try it on your own, see if it works. How is Sefaria different from, is there some irony in this question? How is Sefaria different?
No irony. No irony.
No, but it's funny, right? It's good. It's
No,
good.
you know why? I was working on it, and it has been really, really difficult.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering what Sefaria has to offer in this realm.
Yeah. So I think it depends what you are trying to do or how you're trying to teach. Like, I think if you're trying to, first of all, we have all the texts, right? So you can drag and drop, you can include as many texts as you want or remove the text, change the translations, include media and guiding questions and whatnot. I've never made personally a Haggadah on Sefaria. I've seen Tu B'Shvat Haggadahs made on Sefaria really well. I can show you just like some examples.
My question also is specific. Yeah. Does it have transliteration?
We don't have transliterations right now. That is a good point. We don't have transliterations right now for most texts. You are always able to add your own transliterations, although that would be like probably
that would be a huge job for the whole Haggadah.
What was that?
That would be a big job for the entire Haggadah.
It would be. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a question. Well, one question is like, do you want people to be on their phones or on the computer while they're doing the Seder? If you're doing a virtual Seder, maybe, yeah. But if you're in person, that's like a question. Like, do you want a printed Haggadah or do you want something on the computer? If you want to print it, I would say Sefaria might be a great starting point, right? A place to gather your thoughts and materials, and maybe even like put all the content there. But then you need to give it to the design company or the printing company, as it were, and sort of migrate that over to maybe whether it's haggadot.com or whatever it is. But yeah, I would say our print function, printing a Sefaria source sheet from Sefaria, not our strong point. Definitely aware of those, those weaknesses or areas for improvement. So if you're trying to print it, I would say better to use like a Google Doc or haggadot.com or whatever you find to be better. But I think Sefaria is still like the place you should start and put your content there, because otherwise, like, your content for the Haggadah might be great. And like, for example, if you have guiding questions or thoughts, or you've compiled thoughts from different people to include in your Haggadah, for example, but the world would be empty without it. I guess if you put it on haggadot.com, people could access it too there. So I think it's a good place. So I struggle with the question a little bit. I'm not sure Sefaria is the best place to create a Haggadah in full that you're going to present, at the Seder. But I think there's room for it, and maybe mine's more creative than my own. Might have a different answer. Josh, I saw your hand go up, I think, or something. Did I make that up? No. Okay, maybe something else in the corner of my eye. But if we just want to just kind of see some examples here, I just want to look. Who was it? Let's just see. So I know my colleague Rachel Buckman made a Tu B'Shvat Haggadah. Let me see. Where was it? Just, I know it's not that kind of Haggadah, but let's see. When I'm including a source sheet, it always includes the trup. Something I don't want trup. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Naomi, you still here? Great. So if you want to do that, just depends, I guess, how you're adding it. But if you add it directly, it depends, I think, what your default is, but a simple way to do that is to get rid of the trup when you're looking at it here. When I add this to sheet, it's going to put it here this way. But if I get rid of the trup or just one vowels, then I think if I copy it this way, it won't appear. Is that correct? Or am I mistaken?
I think that's not been my experience.
Oh, really? Okay, let me try.
Yep. Maybe I'm doing it wrong. Let's find out.
it's on the screen. Okay,
Yep,
yeah,
there's your trope.
yeah. So let me make a note.
Thank you very much.
I'll make a note. Of course, my pleasure. I want to look to see if we can look at some examples of Haggadot. And in the meantime, other questions, folks, from people. You still have me here. Ooh, Ashkenaz Pesach Haggadah. Let's see, what is this? So this is a Haggadah someone put on Sefaria. So these are all just texts, actually. Let's go to collections. We didn't do collections. Okay, we'll do that next time. Let's see, Haggadah. Why is Haggadah not showing up? It's just so weird. Oh, Seder, that's why. Okay, let's look here. Okay, let's see here. So this is a Tu B'Shvat Seder that we put together, just sort of like, so you have an introduction, first cup, second cup. I think, so this one doesn't have pictures. Let's see, someone made this one. Mostly text. I mean, I think it looks nice. It depends like what your sort of like the aesthetic vibe that you're going for. Rabbi David Winship. I think he went to Hebrew college.
Yes.
So by the way, I clicked his name, right? And I could see a little bit about him. So he made this. You might actually want to reach out to him if you know him. Maybe he can give some advice, right? On like what's worked with him or how he's used it. Has he made a Pesach Haggadah? He's made Tu B'Shvat, but he never made a. Yeah, but so I can see. I mean, I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I've been trying to put one together and tried all different sources, and it just hasn't worked for all the ways in which.
Where are you struggling? Where do you find yourself struggling?
To have the three components that I'm looking for, which is the Hebrew, English, and transliteration for key pieces of it. And those don't exist.
Yeah. So what I might suggest, if you find that other than that, Sefaria works for you, I don't know. But if you find that that's the main thing, then what I would suggest is that you have the Hebrew and the English, which we have side by side, right? And then underneath the Hebrew English, you have the transliteration, which you could maybe take from somewhere else, assuming you have permission to do that. So that's something you might want to think about, is like you can add as much text as you want. So you could add those transliterations. Are there other areas that you're finding, Sefaria, not to do?
No, that would be interesting. Just more work. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Although I think if you can find the transliterations elsewhere, and they might be out there somewhere.
I can cut and paste.
Yeah. Assuming there's no like copyright issues with that, I believe that should be. Yeah. Yes,
right.
please.
Lauren, thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. Yeah, Josh, please. Thank you, Sonia.
No, I was just saying goodbye and thank you.
Of course. Thank you. My pleasure. Thanks for being here, everybody. Hopefully see you in 2 weeks.
Bye-bye.